Om Shanti. Are you all happy? So today we are going to discuss about OCD, Obsessive Compulsion Disorder. It basically means being obsessed with certain kind of thoughts that compels them to behave in a certain way. For example, if some believes that everything around them is filled with germ, then as soon as they touch anything, they will wash their hands. So as a result, they'll be frequently washing their hands. So that is what scientists call as OCD. So now everybody has OCD, right? Due to coronavirus, because everybody washes hands frequently. So that itself should say that this may not be a disorder. This may be something else. And even if there were no coronavirus, who is responsible for this disorder, especially washing hands? Only educated ones wash their hands frequently, not uneducated ones. Why? Because it is in the education, in biology classes, they teach that millions of microbes are present in a needle point. After listening to that, how can it be crazy for someone to wash their hands frequently? Because this science programs our mind to think that way. That is why we are compelled to wash our hands. Not only do we wash our hands, because that doesn't cause harm to anybody. We even shout at people who is responsible for keeping the surroundings unclean. That is the number one reason for the conflict between the mother-in-law and daughter-in-law in India. Because back in early days, Hindus used to be very clean, both inside and outside. They take baths frequently, they chant mantras frequently, especially people belonging to Brahmin community. Everybody was clean and Brahmins were more clean compared to others. Even today, temple priests, before performing puja, they will take bath. So can you call that OCD? Yes, you can call that, but how can that be a disorder? It doesn't cause harm to anybody. Instead, it enhances their self-respect, self-discipline. And the funny thing about this is, that's the very nature of mind. Mind always think about something. It doesn't stay calm. That is not the nature of mind itself. So it will produce thoughts quite frequently. And the nature of thoughts it produces purely depends on the intake of data from the surroundings. So now, due to this anti-corona campaign throughout the world, now everybody has the OCD of washing hands frequently, because we are programmed into thinking that coronavirus is deadly, it is in the air. By washing hands frequently, by wearing masks, by keeping social distance, there is a pretty good chance of saving ourselves. So the information that is mixed with the emotion, here in this case, it's a deadly emotion. It's the fear of death that makes us to think of it continuously. So the repeated thoughts are purely the outcome of the intake of data mixed with emotions. If you watch closely the thoughts we produce, it will either be lustful or filled with anger, greed, attachment and ego. So this is how we produce thoughts, because these are connected with strong emotions. OCD becomes a real problem only when the thoughts we obsess about are very negative and has a negative consequence. Like if you are in a relationship, if you have the constant fear of your spouse cheating on you, so that will have a negative consequence. But still, you can't say that it is impossible for that to happen. It is still possible. It is because it's possible that we start to produce such thoughts, because we see it quite often around us. We see our friends cheating on each other. We see it on newspaper, we see it on television, we see it all around us. So it's quite natural to think negatively. Being positive is not going to help either, because you see cheating for real. It's happening everywhere. So what happens if you don't have this possibility of being cheated in your mind? When you confront such situation, when your spouse cheats on you, you get so much emotionally disturbed. Sometimes you will even go mad. And same is the repeated thought about the death of our loved ones. That's something unavoidable, right? Whether you think positive or negative about it, it is something that will definitely happen, either now or in the future. It will definitely happen. So in that case, I don't think OCD is a disease. That's the fact. But it shouldn't disturb you, because everybody knows for sure that death for everybody is predestined as soon as we take birth. So we should address the issues that we fear facing after losing the dead ones. So the issues may be financial, emotional. You need to address those things. You need to keep your mind busy with relationships, with the work that generates income. So there is no need in such fear of losing your loved ones. And now comes the emotional attachment, because you are obviously very much attached to your spouse. So death of either of them is going to be something irreparable. Nonetheless, you should work on your emotions to stay strong, to not to be dependent on the other, no matter who is. Because we know for sure everybody we see are perishable. They are not going to stay on forever. They are not God. So what should we do? If you're smart, you should be emotionally attached to the imperishable God. That way, you will not be emotionally disturbed, even if someone close to you dies in front of you, either due to corona or some other reason. Especially in a relationship, if a person doubts the other person frequently and tortures them with doubtful behavior, that's going to create pain for both of them. And the funny thing is, not everybody expresses that doubtful behavior, but it is there in everybody. So they will keep it repressed. They will suffer within themselves if they have the doubt about their partner, especially when they move closely with their friends of the opposite gender. So what is the solution? Instead of keeping it within yourself or bursting out in anger, you sit down with your partner and express it very gently. In a soft manner, you express, I feel hurt. I'm really doubtful. I'm not doubtful, but still something hurts me. Something kindles fear in me, whether I'm going to lose you. So you are mingling with others. It may or may not be wrong, but it's hard for me to take in. So when you let your partner know of your pain, and also you can add, just think for a moment how you would feel if I do the same to you with one of my friends of opposite gender. Will you be able to withstand that? So do you think I'm stone-hearted or what? I'm also human. I will also get hurt. So you know what you need to do. Please maintain some distance. I'm not asking you not to talk with them, but keep a distance. So when you say this gently, most of the time they will understand. But still, if they are spiritually weak, they may cheat on you. That's still a possibility, but to a lesser degree, because you have let them know your feelings. So now they may feel guilty if they have some extramarital affair. And if your spouse expresses the same, they may be expressing it in an arrogant manner or burst out into tears. It's okay. You know their feeling, they are hurt. That's the fact. So, what are you going to lose by not speaking to someone of opposite gender? You're not going to lose anything. You can avoid them altogether. All you are going to gain is the extra time that you can spend on the work you really wanted to do. That's going to spare you more time. So there is more to gain and nothing to lose, right? Because if you can't keep your spouse happy, then your family is not going to be happy. Because you are going to be emotionally dependent on your family. And it's impossible to get the peace outside the family. Even if you can, it's going to be very temporary. And eventually it's going to cause you more emotional damage than peace. So OCD always exists in everybody. Just think for a moment. When you walk on the street, a beautiful man or woman comes in front of you. You will definitely have a thought to look at them. At least you will have a thought, someone very attractive is in front of me. Don't you think that's also one of the OCD problem? So your mind always creates this thought whenever you confront someone beautiful, either in real life or in television or internet. That's basically because you're so obsessed with the beauty of the opposite gender. You may think that it is not negative, but it is negative. Trust me, it is negative. Women tend to have OCD problems more than men. that is in a negative way. They always ruminate over their negative past. So for years they would be ruminating those old memories, because of which they get sick both mentally and physically. So OCD is going to exist forever. What we need to do is to convert the negative OCD into the positive OCD. What is the positive OCD? Something that gives you intense pleasure. Actually, you can call watching pornography. That is also OCD, right? So whenever you are alone, you want to watch porn, or you want to indulge in acts, sexual acts. So whenever you confront such situation like loneliness, your mind start producing those thoughts, because when you were alone in the past, that's what you did. So your mind gets that habit of repeating that thought whenever it confronts the same situation again. So all sorts of addiction arise due to the thoughts produced by OCD, whether it's porn addiction, addiction to substances, addictive drugs, nicotine and chocolates. Everything happens due to OCD, because as I mentioned earlier, mind always thinks, and the thoughts it usually produces is the thought that you produce repeatedly. So to stop that, you need to feed in fresh thoughts that's quite positive in nature. You need to fill your mind with positive thoughts all the time, so that the negative thoughts that were deep in your mind gets washed off gradually. How do you do that? Because certain OCDs raises the fear of being alone, like the death of our loved ones. So that is unavoidable. So how can we change that thought to be positive? And it's only here God's direct knowledge comes to the rescue. God says this world comprises of 5,000 years time cycle. So whatever happens, so this 5,000 year time cycle is called a kalpa. Whatever happens in one kalpa keeps repeating kalpa after kalpa. To put it easily, if you are watching this video right now, you have watched this video 5,000 years back on this very same day, and you will again be watching this video every 5,000 years once on the very same day. So this 5,000 year time cycle or drama is that accurate, and God says for the first 2,500 years this world itself was heaven, filled with gold and diamonds and with beautiful humans called deities. We were deities in the beginning, and after taking several rebirths for the first 2,500 years, we become ordinary humans. That's when this world becomes hell. So we start experiencing pain and suffering in hell. But in heaven, all we experienced was bliss, peace, and purity. Why? Because in heaven, we didn't consider ourselves to be this perishable body. Instead, we considered ourselves to be this imperishable soul that shines like a tiny star in between our eyebrows. That is the reason in India, Hindus have this habit of wearing a red dot between the eyebrows, because that is where we are located we are not this body. We are the ones who operate this body. Just like a driver operates a car, but he is not a car. Likewise, we are the souls that operate this body, and we are not this body. So we are totally distinct from this body. That is why during death, the soul lives, leaving the body intact, but it couldn't operate on its own. So it takes another body. So that's how this birth and death cycle happens. For the first 2500 years, they were soul conscious. So they were very beautiful. So those deities are being worshipped till death by Hindus in temples. Though they were very beautiful, they don't get disturbed by their external beauty, because their focus is centered on the soul, because the soul itself is the embodiment of bliss and peace. Everything around them will make them happy, but more than that, they will get the huge amount of bliss and peacefulness right from themselves. They themselves are the embodiment of bliss and peace in heaven. That is why we go there, go to temple and pray to them for giving us pleasure and peace. And one more thing I need to add is, they produce only positive thoughts. They don't produce even a single negative thought. By negative thought, I mean those 5 vices: lust, anger, greed, attachment, and ego. They don't even know what they are. These 5 vices are called Satan or Ravan or Maya. So that would be totally absent in heaven. When we enter hell, after the completion of first 2500 years, we start experiencing these 5 vices, because we come to body consciousness. So we search for happiness outside of us, because we no longer are soul conscious, so we couldn't derive happiness and blissfulness from the soul. So the soul wants happiness somehow. So now it starts searching outside through senses, sensual pleasures. Unfortunately, all those sensual pleasures last for very temporary period, very little time. And the side effect of that is prolonged suffering and pain. So everything we do out of these 5 vices are called sins. So we have been committing more and more sins for the past 2500 years, because of which we are facing huge problem in terms of our health, the climatic conditions, natural calamities, poverty, and the world war that is about to come. Because we souls were filled with power, soul power, spiritual power in the beginning, which decreases gradually, very slowly while we were in heaven. But after entering hell, after becoming addicted to these 5 vices and sensual pleasures, the power in the soul gets decreased at a rapid rate. Now it has reached a point that there is almost like no power in the soul. There is, but very little. And that is the main reason we start creating numerous amounts of negative thoughts repeatedly. Because when the soul loses its power, it loses its power to control the mind from creating more and more negative thoughts. And the soul, after death, takes its characteristics with it. So the predominant character the soul possessed before its death will be transferred in its next birth. So that is the main reason some tend to have this doubtful mentality more compared to others. Maybe they would have had some bitter experience in their past lives, sometimes in their childhood, in this birth itself. And also uncontrollable sexual thoughts is also the result of the past lives, and also due to the consumption of excess pornographic materials. And now, after listening repeatedly to the negative news about corona deaths that's happening everywhere across the globe, we become so impulsive if one of our family members gets infected with coronavirus. So how should we get out of it, come out of having negative thoughts? So for that, God says, we are now at the end of the world, because God himself comes at the end of the world. 100 years before the destruction of the world, God comes from his supreme abode, which is called Parandam or Parlok. So this would be a golden red colored light world. That is where God dwells along with we souls. So we reside with him before taking birth. He is also a soul just like us, which is why he is called Supreme Soul, Param Atma in Hindi. The only difference between God and us is we enter this birth and death cycle that lasts for 5,000 years, while God stays away from this. Heaven is filled with pleasure, hell is filled with pain. That is why in Srimad Bhagavad Gita it is mentioned, I stay away from pleasure and pain, which means I stay away from heaven and hell. But still God needs to come to give this knowledge, because only he has this knowledge about this 5,000 year time cycle. And also the knowledge to purify ourselves so that we become eligible again to take birth in heaven. So this world is going to be converted to heaven very soon. That is why we are seeing so much sufferings, because we need to pay for the sins we have been committing for birth after birth. So now is the judgment day. So everybody is paying price for their sins, because of which they are suffering. So God doesn't interfere in that. What God does is, he is showing you the way to wash away your sins all by yourselves. God doesn't wash your sins for you. He shows you the way. What is that way? God says only after becoming body conscious you started committing sins. And you didn't while you were soul conscious. So to get rid of all the sins, you need to become soul conscious again. But unfortunately, you have no control your mind. So mind produces negative thoughts automatically. So being soul conscious means to be able to stay as soul, realizing yourself as a soul continuously. So that needs intense concentration that we lack now due to loss of soul power. So how do we increase the power? Only God is always powerful, filled with these powers, divine powers. So by remembering Him constantly, we can fill our souls with those divine powers. How do we remember God? As a point of light in the golden red colored world. So we can remember Him as a star shining in a golden red colored sky. We need to continuously visualize Him like that as much as possible. The more you remember God, more are your sins going to be washed away, and more your soul is becoming pure. But how do we do that? It's not enough just to remember God as a point of light. In addition, you need to stay away from the external world. So you need to cut all sorts of contact to the external world. How do you do that? It's impossible. We are living in that world, right? So by listening to God's knowledge daily, God enters an old man's body to give this knowledge, and He names that old man as Brahma. And the knowledge given through Brahma is Murli. It is available in all Raj Yoga meditation centers that's across the globe, totally free of cost, because it is God Himself who is giving. You need not spend a penny for that. It is also available online in websites and YouTube videos. All the links are given in the description below. You can read Murli in all languages. It is available. So you can read it in your mother tongue so that you can feel the love of God more. So you need to read it daily. So God is going to give Murli daily, fresh Murli daily. And you need to churn over the important points of Murli throughout the day. By doing this, your mind is always preoccupied with God's knowledge. So there is no space left for taking in unwanted things from this Kali Yuga, old world, corrupt world. So you need to keep your mind busy throughout the day in remembering God and in remembering the knowledge of God. By doing this, your mind is filled with positive thoughts, and it becomes gradually powerful, and finally it reaches a point it doesn't produce a single negative thought. Just take a child for example. What will happen if its parents die? There is a possibility for them to die, right? Does it think of it? It doesn't. Even if they die, it doesn't worry about it because it doesn't produce those thoughts. It doesn't bother whether it is going to be brought up by its grandfather or uncle, whoever, because their soul is filled with more power compared to adults, because our mind got so much corrupted that it has lost all its power, thereby creating so much negative thoughts. And God says, you carry your past karma in the form of sin and charity. So as long as your soul is filled with charity, that is good doings, it will enjoy the benefit of it. So you will be in a good family, someone will be there to take care of you in the form of parents or husband or children or whatever. Or you will be getting job just like that. But if your sin is more, then you will be losing your parents, so unhappy relationships and so on. Now all you need to do is to connect your mind only with God, establish all sorts of relationships only with God. He is imperishable, so you need not bother about anything. It doesn't mean you need to dump all other worldly relations. It will be there just for the sake of it. You will take care of your family, but you will stay detached from the attachment. Your mind is 100% attached only to God. So God is there to protect you. You are speaking with God. God himself is speaking with you, which has never happened for the past 5,000 years, because only once in 5,000 years God himself comes and speaks to us. How gifted we are. So we keep repeating such thoughts throughout the day that we feel more and more happy. So the more you churn these points throughout the day, no matter what happens around you, nobody or nothing can steal your happiness or your peace. Even if someone very close to you die in front of you, you will still feel your mind floating in happiness, because you got habituated into creating such positive thoughts that you no longer can create any negative thought, because it is due to the thought you start experiencing emotions. Now you have lost all the ability to create negative thoughts. So all you have is to gain happiness. Even before entering heaven, you are experiencing the pleasure of heaven right in the middle of hell. That's the magic of God and His knowledge. It is because you don't feel yourself fulfilled, you depend on others emotionally. But now you are full on your own. So you are there to give love and peace to everybody, and you don't expect anything in return from anybody except from God. God, He is always with you, so He is filling you with all the power, peace, blissfulness, love. So that's the only way you will no longer experience OCD problem in a negative way. But you need to constantly think of God's knowledge. That is something you need to do. You need to put effort to do. Unlike the negative thought that keeps producing on its own. But these positive thoughts, it needs our effort to inculcate in the beginning. After some time, it will be a natural process. You will automatically think only positive, as if you were already in heaven. So everybody has OCD. If someone has something called mind, obviously they have OCD, because that's the true nature of mind, to create thoughts. But in heaven, it creates only positive thoughts. In hell, it creates only negative thoughts. So in order for us to be able to enter heaven again, we need to inculcate the habit of heaven. That is, to create only positive thoughts, only the thoughts of love, peace, purity and blissfulness. How do you do that? By continuously remembering God, by continuously being in the company of God, by separating ourselves from the rest of the world mentally, not physically. We need to be inside in the family, but still mentally we are separating ourselves from others. So we are living with God. So when God is with us, what is there to worry about, right? So this is the only solution. So everybody is having OCD, mostly in a negative way. So share this video to everybody so that everybody can reap the benefit of it. Thanks for watching this video for this long, and don't forget to share this video and hit on thumbs up if you really like this video, and leave your valuable comments in the comment section, and consider subscribing if you haven't subscribed yet. Thanks for watching.